What's good, everyone? Aggie Coach here. All right, man. So welcome to video number 2 in the how to play the FAT8 football. How to play FAT8 football video number 2, and we are going through actual player weight today. We're going through the APW weighting system for the FAT8 conference. This right here is one of the things that really makes the FAT8 football very, very unique within the FAT8 conference. Now, I'm going to give you guys a really short story on this, and I'm going to try to keep this relatively quick because we got to go through all of this. So this right here came from a series of interviews that my father and I did with a bunch of NCAA coaches. And what we find, and my father also coached football as well, both at the high school level. And so one of the things that makes this video really unique is the way that our rule system is set up, the APW system. Our rule system is set up in ranges, okay? It's set up in ranges. We do not use a 4.0 system or a 3.2 system, okay? Those systems you will find in other electric football rule sets. In the FAT8 conference, playing FAT8 football, we don't do it. Now, this is the reason for that, okay? This is the reason for that. And that is that every player on every team that you will ever see doesn't have the same weight, okay? So what I found is we want to try and stay as close to the aspects of football, the core aspects of football as possible. And one of the things that makes football really interesting, exciting, and challenging for athletes is that you don't know who you're lining up against, right? You don't know who you're lining up against. You don't know what that person's weight is. You don't know what that person's height is. You don't know what that person's abilities are. You don't know until you actually play. Now, teams get in, they do film. They'll scout teams out. The coaches will go through it, and the coaches will scout teams out. Most of the times they're looking for offensive schemes and defensive schemes and ways to answer different types of strategies that a team might be employing on the board, and sometimes on the field. And sometimes a team might have a star player, that's getting big yards and might be doing stuff, and they might talk about his weight, they might talk about his strength, they might talk about his ability to read the offense, read the cutback lanes, read the defense, all of that kind of stuff, right? But that is on an individual basis, and that only accounts for one person. But in football, when you get on the field as a football player, now I played football in high school, I played football in middle school, I played Parks and Rec, and I played college. And in football, I can tell you from personal experience, I never knew who I was going to be lining up against. I never knew what that person was bringing to the table. I knew what we saw when we studied film, you know what I'm saying, and it gave me some concept, some idea of who I might be dealing with. But a team's formation changes from play to play, from situation to situation. So you really never know who you're lining up against. And that is the thing that brings great matchups, and it really does allow your players' skills to come alive. It allows you to highlight matchups. It allows you to exploit matchups. It also allows players who you might consider as being like not really a good player or not a strong player, who might be matched up against a player who is considered an all-star or a star player. It gives that player an opportunity to make some big plays. So the APW system was put in place to maintain that level of realism in football, where athletes don't know who they're matching up against, and coaches have to try to figure out how to get the right matchups in order to exploit some weakness in the defense, or some weakness in the offense, or some weakness in personnel to get good matchups. So this is the reason that this has been put in place, to try to, as much as possible, stay in line with what you see in football on Sunday and on Saturdays. So this was very important to put APW in place to serve this purpose. Additionally, we did a series of interviews just before we started designing the APW system with a lot of coaches in high school and coaches in college, and we asked them the question about their recruiting practices and like if they had any particular type of athlete that they look for in terms of height and weight and strength and skill and that kind of thing. And a lot of the coaches told us that they have a specific weight range or a height that they're looking for. Like, for example, some schools who are pass-oriented schools, for example, they tend to look for the taller wide receivers that are more on the 6'2", 6'3", 6'4" scale, right, in terms of height. And they want receivers that they want quarterbacks, for example, that also have a certain height so that they can see over the line, so that they can make those passes. You can hit those receivers. When you have a receiver that's 6'5" going against a cornerback that's 5'8", you know what I mean? You have a huge advantage there, right? Now, of course, you can't account for skill, but for these types of things, you have a huge advantage there. So to account for this, we have offensive linemen. For example, most of the teams had a range where they wanted an offensive lineman between 250 and 300 pounds. So when you have that kind of thing, sometimes you want to bring a kid in and you want to get that kid in the weight room, get their strength up, get their weight up, and that kind of thing, so that they can fit into those slots, right? So to create these mismatches, right? To create these great matchups, coaches in college football and coaches in high school have an idea of what weight they are looking for in a running back or in a fullback or in a tight end. They have an idea of what works well for their system. So this is what APW, actual player weight, was designed for. So what I did was I created a weight range in grams that is in line, as an indication, that is in line with what not the NCAA, but what many college coaches and high school coaches have told me that their interest is. And so I was able to recreate that so that we maintain that level of the unknown, the momentum changes, and the changes in personnel to create those mismatches and that kind of thing, to create the great matchups, right? So this was the reason for the APW system. So what we have here is we have a list of ranges I'm going to run through quickly. Okay, so quarterbacks. Most teams told me that, and I just kind of adapted this to make it work better in grams. But most teams told me that they look for quarterbacks between 155 and 225 pounds. Most teams do not want a quarterback larger than 225 pounds. Okay, that might be some changes in the NFL, of course. But the thing is, because in the NFL, defenses are so fast right now, having a quarterback that's overweight is going to get that quarterback injured very quickly, because defensive linemen right now are running under a 5.0 40. So in the NFL right now, running defenses are really fast. Defensive big guys, these big guys are, at 250 pounds, are running a 5.0 40. And, a quarterback that can't get out of the pocket and can't scramble, can't protect himself, is going to get injured. So these are also things that you have to consider. And we have an injury system, which we'll go over later. We have an injury system in the FAT8 conference. So it's very important that you adhere to these weights. Okay, so you have a range you can pick from 155 to 225 pounds for your quarterbacks. That range is 155 pounds for us is 2.0 grams, and 225 pounds for us exactly is 4.5 grams. Okay, so you can, depending on the system that your team is running, you can pick anywhere within that 2.0 to 4.5 range for your quarterback weight to be. You have free range to pick anywhere within that range. Okay, running backs, 2.0 to 5.5. So you can have running backs, some running backs on the larger side at 245 pounds. That's 5.5 grams. Now fullbacks minimum size, as you can see, is larger than running backs. That is because fullbacks naturally are larger than running backs. That's why they're called fullbacks. So your fullbacks minimum weight, 3.5 grams. maxed up to 6 grams. Okay, so that is 185 pounds to about 255 pounds. Okay, tight ends. Moving on to tight ends. Tight ends can start. Tight ends minimum weight is 4 grams. Maximum weight is 6.5 grams. Okay, so that puts tight ends between 195 to 285 pounds. Okay, your offensive line and defensive line starting at 5 grams minimum for offense and defensive line, maxed out at 8 grams. So they can be anywhere in that range, 230 pounds to 350 pounds. Okay. Wide receivers range 2.4 grams to 5.5 grams, same as quarterbacks and running backs. That is also the same case for cornerbacks and strong safeties and free safeties. So they all have the same range. Quarterbacks, running backs, wide receivers, quarterbacks, strong safeties, and free safeties. Same range, 155 to 245. And then you get down to linebackers. They coming in at 4.0 grams, so about 5.8. So that puts them at about 255 as well, 195. And linebackers, you have a little more free range. You can have smaller linebackers if you choose. That's up to you. Guys, feel free to tweak this as much as you like for your own gaming. It is your own gaming, and you should enjoy playing it however you like. Okay, and then the defensive ends, 3.0 grams to about 7 grams, 175 to about 300 pounds. Okay, now I had someone ask me this question already, so I'm gonna go ahead and answer it while I am looking at this. And one individual asked me, why don't I just max them all out and just put everybody at the max weight? Why worry about these ranges? Why put them at the max weight? Well, why not just put everybody, all the way at the max weight? Well, let me put it to you like this. In football, I'm not talking about electric football right now. In football, there is no players. If you go online, pull up the Philadelphia Eagles roster, pull up the Carolina Panthers roster, pull up the Carolina Tar Heels, go look at Ohio State's roster. If you go look at any of those teams' rosters, here is what you will find. There are no players on those teams that have the same identical weight. Nowhere, no how, never going to happen, right? So it is very important that you guys keep this in mind. The whole point of creating the APW system is to create diversity within your conference, within your gaming structure. So you have the feeling of what actual players weigh in real football, right? So it's very important. I want to point this out. It's very important that we understand this. We have to get outside of the gaming concept, right? Get outside of the gaming concept and thinking of, well, what's fair? Well, it's only fair if everybody has the same weight, or I get an advantage if I make everybody maxed out in weight. And what I'm saying to you is, if you max out in weight, every team in your conference, they're going to all have the same weight. You're going to still end up with players on your team that have an identical weight to players on another team. And that is not that's not the effect that you're trying to get. So you want every player on every team to be unique. So therefore, you want every team, you want every player, you want all the athletes in your conference to all have a unique weight marker that makes them unique, that makes them an individual, right? So you can create the great matchups. So that's very, very important that we keep that in mind. If you look at any of those rosters, you will not find every cornerback on the Philadelphia Eagles team to be 165 pounds. You're not going to find that. You're going to find, 8 or 9 cornerbacks on that team. Some are going to be 165, some are going to be 161, some are going to be 185, some are going to be 193, some are going to be 199, some are going to be 212. Like, they're going to all be different weights. So as a general rule, I'm going to point out right here so you guys can see. As a general rule in the FAT8, all players must have different weights. Okay? All players. So you cannot have the same weight more than twice on any team at any time for any reason. All players on your teams have to be different weights, right? So that is it. That's the end of the APW system. So I'm going to stop it right here because I think I'm right at 15 minutes. This is the APW system. This is the logic behind the APW system. These are the weight ranges. Feel free to tweak this and enjoy it and have fun, guys. Get ready for video number 3. Comment, like, and subscribe on the way out.